Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Sarah Vantine here with Ted Ings. Today we have the Affinitiv panel. And Ted, we're talking about how fixed ops is hot again, but what's different this time?
Well, Sarah, thank you for that. I think what's different is that not only do we have our great friend Dean Martin, the Vice President of Marketing at Affinitiv, but we've also got the CEO, Sharon Kitzman. Sharon, welcome, and Dean, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
Great to have you here. We have a lot of important things to talk about. So, Sarah, I'll let you get everything underway.
Absolutely. Sharon, I'll come to you first with this. We're hearing that you have a lot of dealer feedback and insights, related to a lot of different pieces that you're seeing across the industry. But I first want to talk about dealership day supply. So we know that dealership day supply for vehicles has been steadily increasing. And what are some of the top factors that we need and dealers need to keep in mind as we shift back into fixed ops as the revenue driver?
Yeah, over the last several years, it's been turmoil in the dealership associated with the days of supply, vehicle shortages, chip shortages, and then through the pandemic and the different pricing scenarios that happened. We feel like we're getting back to almost normal with days of supply. And as we do, and vehicles are not priced as high from a margin perspective as maybe dealers have enjoyed over the past recent years, we do need to shift our focus to fixed operations from a revenue, a margin, and certainly to ensure that we keep our focus on our client bases. It's a simple math problem, really, at the end of the day. If consumers are purchasing a new vehicle, maybe every 3 to 5 years, depending on their financing or leasing plans, the touch point between the sales department and the consumer is only once every 3 to 5 years. Whereas in fixed operations, specifically the service drive and the advisor, those touch points are more frequent with the consumer. And because of that, you have a better opportunity to really influence the consumer with touch points through marketing initiatives like our Essentials product or online solutions like our book product, where you can book an appointment at the dealership. And then, certainly, once you're in the dealership, between the advisor and the consumer, really building trust around the entire service process.
And Dean, this is so interesting because, right now, Ted and I, we've had a lot of conversations at the Fixed Ops Roundtable around fixed operations being the revenue driver. So I'd love to get your perspective as we're seeing, the days of on market for vehicles increasing and fixed ops becoming more important to that profitability.
Yeah, and in talking with dealers, one of the things that we like to reinforce is the old mantra has been for a long time is just exceeding those customer expectations. But now dealers have to look at this from the perspective of you've got to take that mantra of exceeding customer expectations and you've got to simplify the process and make it effortless for customers because that's the world that we live in, particularly when we talk about some of the younger generations and what they're used to, and the digital world that they're in, and making things very easy. Things like pickup and delivery, making the service process as simple as possible. I think needs to be the direction for increased revenue for these dealers and fixed ops.
I like that. Sharon, when we look at the service experience as a whole, there are some generational preferences, and they differ. And in fact, I have found that Affinitiv is really great, okay? Probably best in market at identifying these. What do you see happening out there, and why is that important at this time?
Well, I just happen to have one of the reasons I think that we're great at it. Each year we do a consumer survey. This one's from 2024. I think Dean and his team just wrapped on the 2025 survey. And from that, we just get a ton of really great data, facts that we can, put into our advertising for our solutions, use as we talk to dealers about the return on investment for the offerings that we have. But specifically, as we look at the service experience and generational preferences, you certainly have your Gen Zs and your millennials who are tech native, and they're going to look to technology first before ever picking up the phone and speaking to someone in a live environment. So allowing our dealers and our team to understand the facts and how they want to experience things at the dealership, and then work with the dealers to ensure that that experience is real, is a key component to how we partner with the dealers. Specifically, Gen Z and millennials are saying that they just have a high confidence in recognizing when they are actually interacting with AI in the form of a chatbot. And they prefer it by 61% to interacting with even a person in a chatbot. So those trends are happening, and they need to be recognized by the dealer so the dealer can make the right decisions on technology that serves their consumer in the service department.
And Dean, as a follow-up, if I may, dealers are actually now allowing a budget for marketing on fixed ops. That wasn't the case years ago, right? And now, or it wasn't much of a case, but now, as you've all pointed out, it's so important on the service drive and in parts as well.
Absolutely. And what's interesting about that is we're seeing a lot more of the campaign requests coming through that are focused on fixed ops and service offers and everything, and a greater communication preference that goes across not only email but for chat and text, and being able to kind of moderate how those communications are going out based on the preferences of the vehicle owners. And one thing that we need to remind dealers of, it's not always about speed and trying to get that communication out as quickly as possible, particularly when you have a vehicle in service, because sometimes if you just have a little bit more time, it's allowing your customers to make more logical decisions, right? And if they prefer text and they're showing a preference for that, then it's incumbent on the dealers to focus on that.
Dean, I want to come back into that other point that you made regarding, with this focus on, the repair orders in the dealership and having, some of that awareness of what the customer is going through, throughout that process. And what we've been seeing, Ted and I have had a lot of conversations, and we're seeing a lot of different pieces with OEMs, putting a lot of emphasis on warranty work and really prioritizing those customers and those vehicles that are under that 2 year 3 year period, and those are the customers that they're marketing, and those are the pieces that they're really hyper focused on. But the reality is a lot of customers are holding on to their vehicles for longer, and we're seeing more and more of customers defecting at later points in their ownership cycle to independent shops and other places. So Dean, with what you're seeing around the country with this evolving RO mix, how do dealers bring back that growth for customer pay ROs?
Yeah, I think a lot of it really lies in being able to exhibit that expertise. When we look at the total OEM warranty ROs growing by 19%, and then we compare that to the customer pay RO growth at only about 2.2%, then that's an indicator that expertise and that knowledge that's shared by the technicians and the service advisors is so critical during that period of time, because you're reflecting the knowledge base that exists for some of these newer vehicles, particularly EVs, where there is so much software and there's so much technology in these things that a lot of the because typically Gen Z is going to be the generation that's going to try to do it themselves, but with the level of technology and the sensors and running codes and being able to repair some of these the Teslas and Rivians that come in, there's that knowledge base that exists that will probably go long beyond when the warranty expires. So I think that the expertise is a big play. So I think that's a big focus.
Sharon, how are you seeing dealers, really strategize these pieces? Dealers need to be focusing on this customer pay repair order business in order to really sustain their bottom line.
Yeah, they sure do. And, we're seeing this at the dealers as well as the manufacturers. A focus on transparency in the process. To Dean's point earlier, maybe a Gen Z who would have looked up how to do something on YouTube or fiddled around with it themselves, who is now completely out of their realm in a higher tech vehicle, needing to bring it to the dealership for the repair, but still feeling uncomfortable about the process. So, a huge effort in transparency about what's going on. I'm sure you guys have seen it, but plate glass windows that allow the consumer to look right into the technician repair bays in the service department, as well as tech video, right? The technician taking actual video of the repairs that need to be done, whether it's a frayed wiring harness or a dirty air filter or tire tread depth issues, whatever it is, and really showing that through a video to the consumer eliminates kind of that fear and uncertainty about what's really going on with my vehicle behind the wall. So we encourage our dealer clients to embrace that, to get in front of the consumer fear and be transparent with the repairs that are happening. And that will eventually then bring those consumers back in for those repairs longer term.
I love it. It speaks to the transparency, Sharon, and the trust that we're building. And now here's the technician suddenly becoming front facing, right, with the customer. So
Mhm.
the customer enjoys hearing from the tech. I want to ask you, Sharon, there's been a lot of discussion in the industry about CDPs and first party data. What is the simplest way for dealers who are focused on fixed operations and retention to understand what it is that they need to do?
Well, Ted, I've been in the industry for, I'll just say 30 plus years, and about 30 of those years have really been affiliated with DMS businesses. And I can tell you, unfortunately, no one has cracked the code on ensuring that inside of the DMS, the client or the customer file is clean and up to date. In fact, most dealers have more duplicates than they'd like to admit or like to talk about. So, really understanding the data through a CDP or other services that are available, and making sure that the data that you're using to market and follow up with your consumer is accurate. And a single point of reference within the systems is critical. The stat that we have associated with this is that 55% of dealerships DMS is comprised of customers who have not been in over
Yeah.
to that dealership in over the last 12 months. So, finding a really good marketing initiative. We have one called Essentials that helps you not only keep that database clean and accurate, but staying in touch with your consumer to bring them back into the dealership will continue to allow you to update that consumer data into the area, whether it be phone or email or text, that the consumer wants you to communicate with them long term as well.
I love it. And Dean, I saw recently average age of a vehicle on the road today has never been higher. Okay, somewhere between 12 and 13 years. This really plays into the fixed ops. And your thoughts on the data and simplest way to focus on retention.
Yeah, with data, as we all know, the most important thing with data is managing it at a high level of quality, trying to unify a lot of those fields, filling out a lot of the missing gaps. Customer records change all the time. So ensuring that, number one, your service advisors are capturing all of the information they can, making sure that email address is filled out, making sure the home address is confirmed, making sure all of that the critical customer data is confirmed when they arrive for their service visit. And then really, then you got to start looking at how your DMS, your CRM, and if you have a CDP, how it's being used to communicate to your customers. Because a lot of times dealers use their CDP as a one-way communication with marketing. And the ideal way is to make it a two-way communication so that you're communicating to your customers. Your customers are replying to you, and it creates a conversation so that it's a closed loop where you're getting information from the customer. And in the event that you have somebody that's in your database, maybe they're a lost customer, that you segment those properly so that you communicate to those who maybe haven't been in for 2 years because their warranty just expired, and you have the ability to create offers and communications that speak directly to them versus a loyal customer who's already coming in, so you can strengthen those offers for those particular customers.
Sharon, I love the pieces that Dean is sharing, and I want to come back to the point that you made previously, which was, transparency is continuing and is going to be an ongoing focus for franchise dealers. But I want to talk a little bit about, some of the challenges around creating that transparency. So, as Dean was saying, sometimes if a dealer isn't paying attention to how their marketing communications are going out to their customers, that customer can experience kind of a fragmented experience between sales, service, parts, or anywhere along the process as they're getting their car serviced. So I'd love to get your perspective. What are some ways that dealers can more effectively create these seamless transparency components into their fixed op strategy?
Well, I think having one marketing initiative and kind of one sense of the truth between your data and your customer experiences, getting those campaigns dialed in so that you're not wearing the consumer out, but you're hitting them in a just in time position, and making sure that that just in time position is accurate based on the vehicle, the type, the mileage, the age of the vehicle, and the repairs that are needed. It's always good, I think, and we have stats that prove it as well, to communicate to the consumer in the way that they want to be communicated to, and that doesn't always allow for as much of the traditional graphics and things like that that maybe have happened in the past. But the consumer process and what their preferences are is really what the dealer needs to be trained on from that transparency perspective. You don't get to just do what you want anymore. There are consumer rights out there, and communicating to that consumer in the way that they want to be communicated to is the best bet in getting that consumer back into the dealership.
Dean, it sounds like there's a lot of factors to consider when you're implementing transparency. So there's a lot of different ways that dealers looking at this process, they're going to have to analyze a lot of different components to make sure that everything is getting communicated in the way that the customer wants in this experience.
Yeah, exactly. And from the customer's perspective, if you are taking your vehicle in for service, they put it through MPI and they discover some things.
Yep.
Statistically, that individual, particularly Gen Z, they find they're much more trustworthy if there is the use of video or photo versus just taking the word of mouth of the service advisor for what may be needed for the vehicle. So being able to have that is tremendous. It also, there's a difference between telling someone that there's something wrong with your vehicle and also giving them the evidence to support that idea, to say, here's what we found. And sometimes it's literally an address from the technician to the customer saying, Sarah, I found these things. I looked at the checkpoints for A, B, and C. We found these things. We recommend this. This looks good. You have the option of this. So good, better, best options is always really good. And as far as transparency, and when we look at where the industry is going, and from social media and the interaction that happens from the dealership to wider audiences, both from the sales and service aspects of the dealership, I like to refer to what's happening with, if you guys are familiar with Doug Horner and Benzos and Bow Ties, he does a fantastic job with showing that level of transparency with what happens in the behind the scenes of a dealership. Because, as a GM, he's having people come into his office, and he's showing the entire process. They're talking about the credit score. If they're negative equity, there's
Yeah.
details that you wouldn't have otherwise been able to see 20 years ago that just didn't exist. So that level of transparency, I think, is setting the standard for both sales and for service. And now we have the technology and the tools to be able to do that. We at Affinitiv, we have our tech video, which allows that to happen, along with our MPI product. So
And I want to ask you both, if you don't mind, about how EVs factor into the fixed stop strategy as dealers are now looking forward into next year, making plans in terms of providing a superior customer experience. I don't know who'd like to take that one first, but I want to make sure I query you both on that. EVs.
yeah, I can jump in with just a couple of my thoughts. I think one of the big things is ensuring that technicians are fully trained on all of the latest technology, because EVs are moving so quickly with the development and the growth and the improvement of these vehicles. It's a moving target, and sometimes it's tough to keep the technicians fully educated on all of those vehicles. And then also managing expectations for the customer. You're going to get more tire wear, and you're going to have to replace your tires much sooner. So things like that, I think, are, again, plug into transparency and communication, but also strengthens that relationship with your customers.
Okay. Last question for today. I'll make it a lightning round. So I'd like to come to Sharon first and then Dean to bring it home. You've got a minute, about a minute on this one. All right. As I mentioned earlier, dealers are now, here we are in the middle of the fourth quarter. They're making their plans, not for just this year. Now they're looking into next year, and they're doing those things. They're doing budgets. They want to make up for that lost revenue from the variable side on fixed ops. So, a lot of fixed ops directors and service and parts managers, are feeling that. Okay, so Sharon, first, if you will, what are some of the things that we can expect, and how can Affinitiv help? And what do you have also coming up? If I can peer into the new year, I imagine you both will be at NADA as well in early February.
Yes, that's correct. And we hope there's no ice or snow in Vegas this year.
We don't
So
need
that
that.
so that not only will we be there, but hopefully all the dealers can also attend instead of having flights canceled and all the kind of madness that happened last year. I think what's unique about Affinitiv as fixed operations directors, service managers think about the tools that they need to tackle generating revenue and margin in fixed operations for 2026 is that Affinitiv and its suite of solutions really touch the vehicle at all different points in the process, from sales to service, through the service process with our book and MPI and Smart Lane technology, along with our ongoing marketing through Essentials. And then, even when that client has equity in their vehicle, our sales to service process flips back to sales, and our quote product kind of jumps in and allows the sales team in the dealership to get that client back and put them in a new vehicle through that great effort that the fixed operations team has had and the great relationship that they've forged over that last 3 to 5 years, as we've been talking about earlier.
Dean, you got the last word.
Yeah, I will say convenience and transparency are really two of the biggest drivers moving into 2026 and beyond, because the further we go into this age of the experience economy, things need to feel simpler. It shouldn't feel like going to the dentist to take the car to get service, right? And so we've also seen, as you guys are probably aware, customers are 3 times more likely to choose the dealership again when they rate that experience as excellent or superior. And so These modern customers expect a dealership experience that aligns with what they're used to, photo and video. They like to see the status of the vehicle. They like to do a lot of these things, particularly younger generations. They like to get the information online through a portal, and perhaps even with not much face-to-face interaction. So, dealers have a tremendous opportunity to win over these customers and retain some of these customers over the long period of time, over their competitors and also from the independent repair facilities. So,
Dean, where's the best place our audience can learn more about Affinitiv if they want to take the next steps or have some of their questions answered, which I know they will?
Sure. Our website is affinitiv.com. That's AFFINITIV.com. And if for any specific questions, you can reach us at solutions@affinitiv.com, and we'll be happy to have a conversation with you.
Great. We're looking forward to an exciting new year, seeing you both at NADA early in the year. And
Absolutely.
I'd like to invite you both back in January. We're going to have another show before the big show out in Vegas. And Sharon, if you have any big announcements, that'll be a great place to make it right before people come out. So just in case it does snow out there, they'll be sure to hear it here on the roundtable. So,
Oh, don't even say it out loud.
very grateful to both of you, Dean Martin, Sharon Kitzman from Affinitiv. Learn more at affinitiv.com. And by the way, on behalf of Sarah and myself, we want to wish both of you at the end of next week a very happy Thanksgiving to you and your families and the Affinitiv family. And thank you for all you do for the industry.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
All right. Dean Martin and Sharon Kitzman from Affinitiv here with us today at the Stops Roundtable.